Listen to the vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Vibes, and I'd love to welcome here Greg BENNICK. And Greg is an author, a speaker, a coach, and you also help people get a grip on things to get away from distractions and be
Dude,
more productive. So, well, we're going to have a great conversation, but tell us a little bit more about you.
absolutely. So I'm a team building keynote speaker. I do team building keynote speeches and trainings for the corporate and association market. I've been doing that since I was 13 years old in various forms. And I say in various forms because I started out as a comedy juggler and entertainer, and over the years have added and included and kept including comedy juggling and comedy just throughout my presentations. So instead of just being dry presentations, I do these fun presentations for groups who are not used to seeing fun presentations, and I bring people together. So that's always the goal.
And you help people keep focus. Squirrel. No, I'm kidding. Um, so how actually do you help people do that?
Well, one of the things that I do when I go into organizations is I always ask and learn and study first. Meaning, instead of going in saying, hey, we need to focus, people are like, hey, we know that, we're scattered. But I always try to figure out what the shared value is, what the shared goal is, what the shared mission is for any organization. And then I try to think of ways that that organization can get back to it, right? So let's say we're talking about this podcast. We're focused on the conversation, we're dialed in, we're ready to go for the next 20 minutes. But if we weren't, the first thing I would ask you is, what's the goal of the podcast? Is it to be scattered and all over the place? If so, great, let's be that. But if the goal is to say, focus on what I do for a living or what you like to collect, you've got this fascinating background of amazing collectibles. Let's dial it in on that. So I always try to customize the work that I do. So the most important thing is figuring out after that customization, what is keeping people from that goal. And oftentimes, quite honestly, it's usually just a lack of cohesion. It's a lack of a shared understanding of the goal. So getting people to understand what the goal is gets them back on track.
Now, I mentioned before that you're an author, a best-selling author. What is your book?
It's right behind me there on the shelf. Reclaim the Moment, 7 Strategies to Build a Better Now. And I was thinking, quite a bit a few years ago about how scattered everybody is and how scattered I am and how all over the place I am in every single moment, and realizing that we could do better than that. So I wrote a book about how to bring ourselves back to center when we've been thrown off track by the world, and what can we value, the relationships, the creativity, the kindness that we bring into the world, the willingness to take risks. All of these are different things that we can focus on rather than being scattered like a squirrel all over the place. I talk in the book about Guy Debord, who was part of a group called the Situationists in France in the late 1960s. And Debord talked about the society of the spectacle and how we've been absorbed into a society, a reality that is almost an illusion, essentially, because all around us are images of life that distract us from the fact that as we pay attention to those images, we're arm's length removed away from our actual life. So as I doom scroll through my phone and I see, okay, here's Kyle, he's climbing a mountain. Here's Kyle's cousin Larry, Larry's jumping out of an airplane. I feel like I'm living those adventures when I'm actually just sitting on the couch doom scrolling through my phone. So the idea that we want to engage with life, work, teamwork, the people around us more effectively, rather than keeping them in the midst of that illusion at arm's length, is really fascinating to me. So that's ultimately what the book is about, how to dive back in and get what we actually want rather than be absorbed in what we don't necessarily need or want.
And you go outside the United States?
I do all the time. Yeah, I actually do all the time. I just got back from Scotland and I was in England before that, Blackpool in England. And then what's coming up next? Italy is coming up in a few months. But I've been, all over the world. Yeah, I've traveled to 27 countries around the planet and talked to people.
So because there's a bunch of different cultures there, what do we share in common and what are the differences
I
as
would
far
say
as
that
goals?
yeah, no, you rule. That's a great question, because I traveled across Russia about 10 years ago, and spoke across Russia and Ukraine. It was the first time, as far as we know, anyone's done a tour like that, and probably the last time anyone's going to for this lifetime. But one thing that I realized is that all of us want to, of course, have our kids healthy and our families safe and have a roof over our heads and be financially sound. But we also want to feel as though we're part of something meaningful. And I don't mean you and I want to feel like we're the next Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible 11. We just want to feel that the work the life, the connections that we have, that they're meaningful, that they're substantial, that they mean something, that we matter. People want to feel as though they matter, and that's true anywhere you go in the world. And I don't mean that people are striving for greatness. There's not striving for the American dream necessarily. But when you talk to people anyone anywhere in the world, what makes it easier to connect is getting back to that root of they just want to be heard. I just want to be heard. We just want to know that we're seen and that we matter in the world. It's this shared familiarity with people of any culture all over the planet. I found it in the jungles of Haiti. I found it in Africa. I found it in Russia. I found it in Canada. Wherever you happen to be, people just want to connect. They just want to be heard. And yes, there are people who are bad apples and have bad intentions. That's always going to be true. By and large, the vast majority of human beings are being driven with kindness, driven from the heart. They just want to connect. They want to know that they're significant and that they matter. And that doesn't mean that they win an Oscar or a gold medal. It just means that they're paid attention to and that they're acknowledged for existing. That's very important because that means that we can come together. I'm entirely convinced of it. That you and I, who have known each other for a grand total of about 4.5 minutes, have things in common about the way we're communicating right now that continue to bring us together as long as we stay focused on one another. That's essential. That brings us together wherever we are in the world. That fact.
I've fantasized about actually getting up and speaking in front of a bunch of people. And I mean, you've done TEDx and you
Mhm.
speak in front of all these different folks.
Yeah.
What do you feel in those moments? And is there a difference in the way you feel in front of a TEDx crowd as compared to maybe a Russian crowd?
Sure. No, that's a great question. I think that at the core it's the same. I remember when I first learned performing skills and approach to performing, and I said, like I can't wait till I'm not nervous anymore. And one of my teachers said, this is when I was very young, 13 years old. He said, when you're not nervous anymore, it means you don't care, and you should quit. So I'm always anxious, nervous, excited, anticipatory, whether I'm in front of a room full of 200 people in Eastern Russia, Siberia, or whether in front of a group of TEDx people. And in terms of what I feel, it's that in excited anticipation, and it's rooted in one thing. People often will come to me for speaking coaching, and they say, "What do I do about my fear of being in front of the audience?" And I say, well, one, prepare. If you prepare, you're in great shape. But two, remember that you're in front of the audience not because they want you to fail. They're giving you their time because they want information, feeling, idea, story. They want you to succeed. So just tell them what you know. Just tell them what you know. And people aren't going to ask you, and I don't know your background. I'm going to guess they're not going to ask you to speak at the neurological brain surgery convention next month, right? They're not asking
Definitely
me
not.
that. Right, they're not asking me that either. So we're not going to be in that position. But if they ask you about the William Shatner collectible convention, you're going to stand up and be like, "Yeah, Shatner's great." You're going to tell them what you know. And I'm going to do the same thing if I'm asked to speak in front of a group about team building. I'll tell them what I know. I'm not going to tell them what I don't know. I'm not going to trip all over myself. So the anxiety or nervousness I feel or people feel is often rooted in just wanting to do a good job. Preparation will help with that. Learning about your audience will help with that. Getting calm, stretching out before you go on stage, some basic things to relax will help with that. And then when you're in front of the audience, you can just connect with them and have fun. Now, it's not always that easy. Sometimes an audience is resistant. But if you keep going back to the fact, I'm here for a reason, I'm just going to tell them what I know, I'm going to keep looking to connect with the people in the audience, you're in much better shape than if you're like, why are we here? Why is everyone staring at me? I'm on this stage. Why is everyone facing this direction? This is terrifying. Then it's a terrible road to follow. But stay positive, and you'll find that the experience of being on stage is positive as well.
And you've created like a guideline for this?
Yeah, I mean, they're guidelines, I guess you'd say. I could say, sure, I've got this downloadable PDF that'll tell you, but it's more guidelines, right? So
Right.
when I'm working with clients or working with groups about speaking technique, I'm going through some of these basic ideas, and then as we get further into it, there's a lot about rehearsal, for example, that comes into play here. I'm a speaking coach for TEDx Perth, Australia. And at TEDx Perth, I'm dealing with folks who have these massive resumes. And oh, I'm trying to save the ocean. Oh, really? How? Oh, no, I'm literally trying to save the ocean. It's like, okay, I get it. That's a big mission, and you're going for it. So How does that person, though, get focused when they're on stage? Well, they prepare. And oftentimes people think, well, I've got this great resume, I've got this great work I'm doing. I don't need to necessarily prepare. Preparation helps massively, massively. And if you prepare, run your speech, lay out your ideas, write an outline of your ideas, it's going to put you in an awesome position. So walking people through their intention and their preparation and things like that is a great idea. It gets people centered in a way and prepared in a way that they wouldn't have been otherwise.
Has there ever been a specific moment or moments that have just made all of this worthwhile for you?
Yeah, I mean, doing podcasts where people want to talk to me about what I'm doing, I mean, it's pretty awesome. I would say though that you know, when I first did TEDx Perth, and I was coaching for TEDx Perth, and I had three people that I was coaching. There was supposed to be four, and it turned out one went to another coach, but three. And after the fact, watching all three of the people I had coached just smash it on stage was really cool. That was really fulfilling. And then then there's instances where I get up on stage myself and I'm doing a keynote presentation, and afterwards, people are saying from the back of the room as I walk through the room, "Hey, great job. That was really awesome. Hey, I really appreciate that." And they're not the people who are up front engaging, type A personalities in your face. They're the people in the back of the room who maybe are, got a note card and they're taking notes and a little more mellow and like, "Hey, great job. That's really meaningful to me." I'm like, "Dude, you're the man. Thank you. Yes, thank you. You're welcome." Those are the moments that I value quite a bit.
But has anyone come up to you and specifically said, "You've changed my life"?
It's happened. Oh, it's definitely happened. I mean, I've spent a lot of time on stages. So over the years, I've definitely had people say similar things to me like that. And anytime that does happen, that where people say, "That was so funny, I'm going to change the way that I approach my day," or "You got me excited to think about tomorrow in a different way," it's massively fulfilling, just massively fulfilling to me. I mean, the goal of all this is connection. I mean, the goal
Yeah.
of us speaking on the podcast today is not that you and I are going to retire with Lamborghinis tomorrow as a result of this conversation. It's the fact that we're going to put this on the web. Some person that we're never going to see or know is going to hear it, share it with somebody else we're certainly never going to see. And we hope that that person down the chain of communication goes, "Wow, okay, that's cool." And their day's better as a result. That's what it's about, right? Connection, even with people that aren't in the room, say, people outside of the room are going to be impacted by this and by the integrity and honesty and the communication we put out. That's the goal. That's what we want.
There's several companies that you've been in front of and you've talked to. Has there been one that has shown like the biggest turnaround you've ever seen?
Ooh, that's interesting. I would say, gosh, I mean, I was in front of a group of ophthalmologists and optometrists in Florida years ago, like 3,000 folks who were doing eye care on a really high level. And I remember I had a stellar day. Okay, there's some days where I get off stage, I'm like, that was pretty good. That was a 7 out of 10. I'm pretty happy with that. The audience is very happy. Oh, that was an 8 out of 10. I'm the man. This was a 10 out of 10. This was just, I was on fire. Every word that came out of my mouth was exactly what I wanted to say, how I wanted to say it, with intention, focused on the audience, delivering the messages that I know I needed to deliver to people who really needed and wanted to hear it. It was massive. And it was one of these situations where afterwards I was hearing from the organization who hired me and hearing from people in the audience that like their sales went up, people were inspired, it was a 10 out of 10. And I love those days, but it's a team effort. It's not just Greg Bennick is awesome. Okay. If I thought that, I'd be kind of a fool if I thought it was just all about me. It's all about connecting, genuinely connecting and having a conversation with the audience, which doesn't mean that 3,000 people, 300 people, or 30 people all chime in. It means that we connect in the moment. And when we connect and are willing to be in that moment together and be present, there's a lot of potential for growth. So, yeah, that was one that stands out for sure.
Have you ever dealt with anyone who has, say, ADHD and they have a problem focusing?
Oh yeah, me. Yeah, absolutely. It takes everything I've got to just stay here and sit here and stare at the screen, right? For sure. And as somebody who is being diagnosed with ADHD, I recognize how challenging it is, right? And the call to action that my iPhone presents is very significant. And I say that in air quotes and in jest, right? Because nothing on that phone is more important than what's happening in front of my face, but it easily convinces me that it is. And the distractions from the web and from the world and from all around us convince me that they're more important than what's right in front of my face. And I think it's like, if you think about exercise, like let's say you and I decide to get in shape today. I don't know if you're in shape, out of shape. I could use some work. Okay. So, as I was riding the exercise bike this morning, I was thinking, okay, I'm doing all right today. Tomorrow I'm going to ride it again. The next day I'll ride it again, that sort of thing. And over time, everyone knows this. You get better and better and better, more and more in shape. If you go completely animal for 3 weeks, you're going to quit in week four. It's not sustainable. But if you work out in a way that's sustainable over time, you're going to get in shape. And all of a sudden, 6 months from now, you and I do a follow-up podcast and we name it, my gosh, we're gorgeous because we're in shape, at that point. Um, ADHD and managing it, it's the same way. You know, I could easily be sitting here on my phone while I'm talking to you. Or I could practice just like a workout, keeping my phone away. And when we get off this call, keep practicing keeping the distractions at bay. Keep practicing focusing on the thing in front of me. And much like riding that exercise bike, you're looking for 1%, 0.5% change every day in how much you can focus and apply your attention to the thing in front of you. And it's a training process. You get better and better and better at it.
Have you ever thought about, or maybe you have helped children?
Oh, absolutely. It's interesting you mentioned that. I was talking to somebody just the other day about how I've got two wings to what I do. One is, I speak to corporate groups, of course. I speak to corporate groups, on all these various topics, related to team building and focus. But I also speak to young people about kindness and the possibility of being kind to others. And students are really receptive. And we're talking all age students from real young to seniors in high school are receptive to the idea of kindness. And they're receptive to the idea of working together as a team. And that gives me a lot of hope. I mean, it gives me a lot of hope for the future when kids are receptive to the idea of focusing on kindness first and letting everything come from there. Focusing on listening and working together as a team and letting everything come from there. I've probably talked to 20,000 students in the last, I don't know, I mean, COVID time makes everything weird, right? We say, oh, 2 years ago. It's like, wait, that was 6 years ago. But in the last half a decade, tens of thousands of students. It's been quite a few.
I've thought about with one of my grandchildren, he has autism,
Mm.
and how to help him focus because the kid is brilliant. He's very high functioning and he's already started his own business and he's only 9 years old.
Amazing, amazing.
Exactly. I feel like I need to go to him for a loan.
Exactly, right? Yeah, me too. I want to listen to his keynote speech.
But have you ever helped anyone with autism?
Not specifically, meaning I've not delved into autism specifically, and what I usually advise if people come to me with those situations is to say, ma take an approach of managing the situation from a combination of professional and personal, right? So talk to professionals who manage and help and support people with autism, but also on a personal level, support the kid who's got a business. You know what I mean? Like promote the kid's business and just let this kid focus on his business and thrive in that business while at the same time consulting with a professional saying, "Hey, I've got a 9-year-old who's on her or his way to being a rock star in business. What are the best ways that I can support this young person along the way?" And getting a professional's input. But I say personal and professional is a great approach to take.
And where can folks get your book?
People can find the book a number of different places. Of course, Amazon has it. And then bookshop.org, I think it is, the independent bookseller online. I don't have it in front of me, but if you go to my website, gregbennick.com, GregBennick.com, there's Greg's book link. And if you click on Greg's book link, I think it brings you the bookshop.org link at this point. If not, that's certainly a place you can get it. And any bookstore should be able to order it, even if they don't have it in stock. If you were to walk into a bookstore and say, "Hey, can you get this book?" They'll be able to look it up and order it because it came out on Wiley, who are a major publisher. And I can't expect every bookstore will have it in stock. It's just a real estate issue. There's just too many books for brick and mortars to carry. But they can certainly order it in for people. And I would love to hear from people if and when they read it, what they think.
And what all social media platforms are you on?
Yeah, well, I'm on Instagram for sure. That's at Greg Bennick, GregBennick. And then LinkedIn as well. If you search for Greg Bennick, you'll find me there. And you can search for Build a Better Now, which is the title of my keynote. You can find me on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn and Instagram are great places to say hi. I would love to hear from people anytime.
Well, I'm going to put those links in the description just to make it easier for folks to find you. But
Please do.
Greg, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Have a great day, and thanks for all your listeners for listening as well.
And I also want to thank all you folks out there. If you are new to the channel, I hope you'll come back. Please hit that subscribe button. And for my regulars, you guys are awesome because you make it possible for me to do this. Until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favourite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network